Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Video today is going to be food and meal prep. So after our family shops every 6 weeks, I go 4 hours away to do my 6-weekly shop, and it takes me 2 days to get everything done. I buy in bulk and we use it throughout the 6 weeks. Now, when I first started sharing that I did that, a lot of people asked how I managed to make it last, what I did with it, how I preserved it, how I meal prepped, all that sort of thing. And I started doing videos showing the couple of weeks post the 6-week grocery haul to show how we made everything work. This month I came down with laryngitis on the way there and back, and by the time I got back home I basically had no voice. So there was a big delay in me sharing anything. So we're a little bit behind on this, but I did film anything I did. Though it wasn't quite as in-depth as normal because I had laryngitis and wasn't feeling very well. I did film whatever I did and I'm going to share it. So last month we started doing, instead of doing daily, I started putting a couple of days together into the one video, and it seems to have worked quite well. Slightly longer videos with a couple of days included. So that's what I'm going to do again this time. So this is the first couple of days post the 6-week grocery haul of getting the food sorted. I won't name the days or anything else because it dragged out a little bit because of the sickness, but it'll be the first 10ish days, which is the majority of time it takes me to sort of get stuff sorted. I've got a pig saying hello beside me. All the animals love to come and say hello whenever I start doing voiceovers, and I will probably do a second voiceover after this one because I've been so slack on getting it all done. Enjoy watching, see what we got done and how we did it, and I hope it gives some inspiration for people to, be able to not hit the shops as often, because that's what saved us so much money, is being able to go to the grocery store a lot further apart than what we were doing beforehand. It just inherently saved us money because we were spending less and making do and making sure that we used the stuff that we used. So the first thing we started off with was the chicken drumsticks. So I got a great deal on these. They were a 12-kilo box for $24, but they weren't frozen, they were fresh. Pros and cons to that. With the new hybrid fridge freezer, it wasn't too bad. We stuck them in a bag in the bottom of the fridge where it was nice and cold. But chicken is one of those things that needs to be, if you buy it fresh, needs to be used fairly quickly. So chicken is one of the things that we get to at the very beginning of the month first. Beef and pork have longer use-by dates on them. So the chicken is generally what we get to first, and we tend to eat a lot of chicken in that first week and freeze what is remaining and other meals and things like that, but we tend to process a lot of chicken in this first week because it's the thing that goes bad the quickest, goes out of date quickest, has shortest best before, however you want to phrase it. We didn't used to eat much in the way of chicken legs. They really weren't a favourite of mine, but I think our tastes have changed quite a lot in the time that we have adapted our eating, and a lot of that is to do with the 6-weekly grocery hauls, because we make do a lot. We make do with whatever we have towards the end of the month and what is cheap, because we don't just run out and grab anything else. When we lived suburban, we did groceries sort of weekly, fortnightly, and you ended up with a lot of excess food that you didn't really need, that you weren't using the old stuff because you bought the new stuff. That's what I found anyway. So one of the biggest ways for us for saving money was by increasing the time between grocery trips. And so we've learnt to enjoy a lot of things that we didn't always enjoy before. So chicken legs were never something that I was really fond of, but I now have found that when I do cook them, I really enjoy them, and so do all the kids. So I probably should have bought a couple more boxes at that price, but we're really short on fridge and freezer room at the moment. Fridge not so much with the new hybrid fridge actually, but freezer room definitely. They're pretty jam-packed at the moment. We also were processing the roosters, or we're hoping to at this point process the roosters this month as well, so we knew we'd have some extra chicken there as well, so it was all a bit of a juggle there. But so in the end I only bought one box. What I did with the meal for this night is that I lay them all out on a rack over the baking tray, because I'm going to cook them on a rack over the baking tray. I pulled all the skin up over the flesh so that the skin was nice and firm over the leg, and then I lightly dredged them in a mix of garlic powder, onion powder and baking powder. This is going to help them get a bit crispy and stop them from being soggy. So I lightly dredged them in that flavour mix with the bit of baking powder, and then put them in the hooded barbecue. Now I did a half a cookie sheet and a quarter of a cookie sheet because that's all I can fit in my barbecue. I would like to upgrade my barbecue at some point to have a 6, I've only got a 4 burner, so I think a 6 burner would probably fit 2 half cookie sheets in it rather than only being able to fit the half and the quarter, which would be really nice. It would be really nice to have that bit of extra space. I'd also like a solid plate. One half of my barbecue at the moment has a grill plate, and that side burns the bottom of things if I don't rotate it appropriately, but the barbecue that I have, I think it's an Aldi one, so I haven't been able to find a solid plate for the half that's grill on this one, so I would like to upgrade at some point. It's not a necessity though, so you know, and we have got the wood stove that we are looking to get hooked up as well. Sometime over this summer we're going to build the awning for it to have it off the kitchen and things like that, but it's not going to happen right now, so you know, I know it's going to happen, but it'll be a bit of time. So for the moment, half sheet, quarter sheet is all I can fit into the barbecue. Once I put them in the barbecue, I then vacuum sealed up the bags of the drumsticks in meal-sized portions for us to go in the freezer. So these will be great to pull out the night before we want to eat them and prep them much the same way as I did these ones, as everyone really enjoyed them. Darryl gave another hand sweep showing off them all for everyone after everyone commented on the last time he did his little flourish, so he thought he'd share that with you again. While they were baking, I mixed up a bit of a miso sauce to glaze them with. I used my lovely new enamel cast iron little pot that I got from Aldi on my last shopping trip. It actually kind of matches the stuff that Mum bought me from Costco, which is kind of nice, but irrelevant, but kind of nice. I used some water, the miso, some soy sauce, some rice wine vinegar, a bit of sugar, some ginger, pepper, all the standard things for a sort of an Asian flavoured miso sauce. And it was inspired by Googling. I Googled a bunch of different miso glazes and things like that, and that was the one that I picked. Like, that was the combination of ingredients that I decided worked well. I put it all in the pan and I just heated it on a low simmer until it thickened slightly and dissolved all the sugar. You want it to be thick enough that it's not just going to run off the chicken when you're glazing it, but you don't want it so thick that it's going to be too thick a layer either, and you just want to make sure that that sugar is dissolved and not crystallized. So all I did was I glazed the legs multiple times throughout the cook. So, you know, after the first 15 minutes, and then 20, and then 25, and then 30, and I just cooked the legs until they hit internal temperature of the 165 or of Fahrenheit, which is the chicken. And for some reason, I always think of that one in Fahrenheit, even though I don't always think of my internal temperatures in Fahrenheit. Like, I think of my pork in Celsius, but anyway, 165 Fahrenheit, and I can't think of what that is in Celsius. So once the chicken was 76, I think. Anyway, once the chicken was cooked through, we pulled it out. So it has that lovely sticky glaze on it, but it also isn't soggy. It's also crunchy in the spots that don't have the glaze. We served them for dinner with some sautéed broccoli and some mashed potatoes. So the broccoli, we bought a box of broccoli again this month, which means that we tend to use it in excess for the first sort of week. We use it a lot in a lot of meals in large quantities, not necessarily with any other veggies, just because we need to get through the broccoli because it doesn't last that well. I have been going to try blanching it and freezing it, but again, we've got very, very limited freezer room at the moment. I'm eyeing off that hybrid fridge freezer and thinking, God, it would be nice to be able to use the the freezer function on that, but we need it for the fridge at the moment, so you know, it's still a little bit of a juggle on space there, and I did think it would be really nice to upgrade the little chest freezer that we've got to one of the hybrid fridge freezers to use as a freezer, have the two of them. That would be superb, but even with $150 off, it was still like $860 or something, and it was a lot of money, and I'm still trying to budget that through, that it was already purchased, so I can't afford another one for a while yet, but that might be what I might end up doing. Instead of trying to figure out more freezer space, maybe just upgrading the little tiny one that we've got, the little chest freezer that we've got, for one of the larger ones. The next thing I worked on was passion fruit. I got a whole box of passion fruit for $10. It was a really great score. I'm very happy that I got it. I wasn't real sure how much pulp would be in a box of passion fruit. I probably could have grabbed a couple of boxes, to be honest, with the quantity that it is, because it's probably never find them again. Like, that was probably a one-off finding them that cheap sort of thing for this year, for this season. The only thing I wanted to know, the only thing I was certain that I wanted to make with it was cordial. Now, I haven't tried growing these because I think the frost would inhibit fruit set here. I don't think the heat is quite long enough for it because we get some severe frosts fairly early, like September and May. So it's still really hot during the day, but it drops below 0 overnight. So I don't know, it might be something I might try growing, but from what I understand, because of that fluctuation in temperatures, quite often the actual passion fruit won't grow and you just end up with the graft taking off, the rootstock taking off. So maybe I need to start one from seed. Anyway, sidetracked there. So I thought the best way to deal with them was just to get all the pulp out of them all at once, because that way I don't have to worry about them going bad and I can just deal with the pulp. So I spent a bunch of time, got all the fruit out of the skins into one big bowl. It was an arduous task, but I knew it'd be worth it in the end, and I knew it had to be done, and that it was the best way to make sure that we got use out of the pulp as well. The smell while I was doing it was gorgeous, and the little bits that I tasted at times had a lovely tart zing to it, so I was really looking forward to using it. I worked my way through the entire box and ended up with almost an entire bowl of pulp, one of my really pretty pottery bowls full of pulp, so that was pretty exciting. It did look a fair bit. It's really not a huge amount in the scheme of things, but it's still a significant amount of pulp when considering you buy little tiny like 40-gram tins of it for a couple of bucks in the shops. So pretty exciting. Sonnet was making some cupcakes and requested some passion fruit icing, so I strained some of the pulp straight up just to give her some juice to add to icing sugar to make icing for her cupcakes. She makes these cupcakes. They're a walnut vanilla cupcake. They're really lovely. I'll have to get her to make them for you at some point because she enjoys making them, and she'd probably enjoy making them on video for you. She follows a guided recipe on the Thermomix, except the guided recipe has pistachios and stuff in it. She adapted it when she made it for what we had, so I thought that was pretty nifty too. And it makes a really nice cupcake. It's quite dense, there's no milk or anything in it. It's quite a dense cupcake, but lovely. And then she wanted passion fruit icing for them, so I gave her that little bit of juice to make that with. After that, I'd started just a small batch of the cordial to give it a go. So I added 2 cups of pulp into a pot, and then I added the sugar and the water and some citric and tartaric acid. I will try and find my ratios and put them in the comments. If anyone, make sure to prompt me if you want them. And I will be making more, and when I do, I will try and photograph it and stuff and put it on the website when I'm making it, because it was lovely. So I did put citric and tartaric acid in it because I had intended to can it. That was the original plan, was to can this. And I also added about 1 lime sliced up that I had in the freezer. So when I got boxes of limes a while ago, I sliced them all up and froze them so that I could use the slices. So I put basically a whole lime into the pot as well that was pre-sliced and frozen. I brought it up to a light simmer. We want to dissolve the sugar and sort of meld the flavors and things like that, but you don't want it boiling. You just want a light heat on that. And then I put a lid on it and I let it sit. It'll sit overnight, and what it is to allow some of that gel to come away from the passion fruit seeds to make it easier to strain it. So you're getting all the flavor of the fruit, but you're not getting the seeds, especially not for a cordial. You don't want seeds in your cordial. And Darryl's not a fan of much in the way of fruit texture in his cordial either, so we want this as fairly clear as possible. It's not clear because it's passion fruit, but you know what I mean. So the gel will sort of come away from the seeds a bit, which will make it easier to strain. A bit like when you're soaking tomato seeds to save seeds for planting. That sort of gelatinous outside part of the seed sort of comes away and makes it easier to do that. The next thing I worked on was some of the chicken breasts. So I keep a close eye on dates of the meats as I put them away, and I know what meat needs to be dealt with before others. As I said, chicken generally has the shortest use by date out of what I buy. The pork and the beef are a lot longer. Beef is vacuum sealed, and realistically, personal preference, but realistically, even if that's sat there for 4 or 5 weeks in the bottom of in the really cold bottom of the fridge, vacuum sealed, I'm okay with it. It's beef. Pork is still. It's pretty variable on its use by dates. I'm not overly concerned about it, but chicken we always try and use within the use by dates because it has a tendency to go bad, and I don't want to waste it, so I don't want it to go bad. I had bought 2 trays of chicken breasts, so I think I got 4 trays of thighs and 2 trays of breasts. Each tray of breasts is around about 2.2 kilos worth. This one I filleted up into pieces for dinner this night. And for dinner this night I made my faux KFC. So it's a well-seasoned flour mix that I dip the chicken into. The flour mix has a bit of paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, thyme, all that sort of thing into the flour, into a seasoned mix. And I dip it into the flour and then into the eggs and then back into the flour, and it gives it sort of a nice flaky, sort of a crunchy coating, and then we fry it off in the cast iron, and I normally do a mix of lard and ghee to fry it off in, which I find gives it a really good crispy texture and a good flavour. Just shallow fried, just like, enough, you can see the fat in the bottom sort of thing is all that's required. It's not deep fried at all. It's a very tasty chicken, and it's a great way to use chicken breast, which I don't use for a whole lot of things. And it's really nice cold too. So it's really nice to slice up the next day to have in flatbreads or with salads or anything like that. So I tend to cook enough that we eat it the next day as well. This night I served it with our usual, which is mashed potato. There was steamed frozen veg and some of the rich gravy from Costco, which is our favorite gravy. And like being faux KFC, the whole point is, you know, mashed potatoes, chicken, and crumb chicken and gravy is sort of key to being KFC in our house. So that's how we served it, and the leftovers were put in the fridge to be used the next day or two. The next day I strained the passion fruit syrup mix. I put it through a really nice fine sieve and just sort of shifted it around until the majority of the gel went through. And then decanted into the jars that we tend to use for cordial, which is the mutti passata jars. I really love the shape of these jars. They're really lovely, but they also have a really narrow opening, which I find really good for things like cordial because you don't want to over pour something like cordial. I really like using mason jars with a pump for things like this too, but they're a little hard to come by at the moment and they take up a lot of room in the fridge. These passata jars don't take up too much room in the fridge when they're in there, and we quite often have a couple of flavors open at the same time, so they work really well for the cordial. And besides that, I buy the mutti passata, so it's really nice to have a purpose for the jars too. It had such a vibrant colour. I really wasn't expecting the colour of it. Such a vivid sort of orangey yellow colour. It was really pretty. It only filled about 1.5 jars, so I didn't end up bothering to can it. We just used it over the next week or so. It had the citric acid and tartaric acid. It'd probably last in the fridge for 4 weeks, to be honest. But so it was fine just leave in the fridge when it's that quantity. If it had have made half a dozen jars, I would have canned it because, as I said, we kind of like to have different flavours open at different times. So it's nice to have that opportunity to leave some on the shelf and have in, you know, a while away. And we don't have a huge amount of fridge room at the moment either. I lie. We have fridge room in the new hybrid fridge freezer, but I don't tend to put glass jars, bottles of things like that in the new hybrid fridge freezer because I'm concerned about them being knocked over and not realizing it and spilling in the bottom of that, because cleaning that out would suck. So these need to go into the standard fridge. So we are limiting things that we open like that between cordials and, you know, like apple butter barbecues and plum barbecues and mustards and things like that. There's plenty of jars open in the fridge at the moment. I think I will make some other flavours with the rest of the pulp because I want to extend that pulp out. So like a mango passion lime sounds really great, and I've got some ice cubes of mango in the freezer, from when we had the surplus of mangoes at Christmas time, and I froze them all up. The kids use them for smoothies and stuff, but I've still got quite a few in the freezer as well. And pineapple passion fruit is apparently really nice too, someone mentioned. And I've got the canned pineapple on the shelf, so I could always just use a can of the pineapple off the shelf with the passion fruit and stuff to make cordial with that flavour as well. I probably should have removed the lime pieces out after it had cooled, so let it do its simmer and then put the lid on it, and a couple of hours later come back and remove the lime pieces. Because the citric acid added some tartness and the tartaric acid was in there too, the passion fruit was quite tart as well, and I didn't use the full amount of sugar because I very rarely do. And there was pith still on the lime, so I think that added a bit of tartness to it. It was very zingy. It was not unpleasantly so, but perhaps taking the lime rounds out after it had cooled would have been enough lime flavour, but would have reduced that slightly bitter zing to it. So I think next time that I would do that. And the other thing is too, that when I was squishing it through the colander, I was obviously squishing bits of the lime through as well, and there's potential that I could have got some pith and stuff into the cordial. So whilst it wasn't at all unbearable or undrinkable or anything else, it definitely had this very slight bitter zing to it that might have been from the lime. So I will probably heat it up with the lime in it and then remove the lime pieces before letting it sit overnight next time, and that will give me that lime flavour, the lime hit to it without that bitterness, I think. I froze the rest of the passion fruit in silicone 1/4 cup ice cube trays. So I've got these big ice cube trays that end up being about 1/4 cup each piece. I ended up with about 3 more cups worth. So as I said, I'm going to stretch that out in other flavours of cordial, but for the moment it is frozen, so I can wait till I have the time. I do have the mango frozen in the same ice cube shapes, and I've also got more lime in the freezer, and raspberry passion fruit might be really nice too. So I've got a bunch of different things that I might try and make a couple of different flavors, some bigger batches of it, and use that passion fruit to the most effective way that I can get the most out of it, because as I said, I probably won't be able to get that again at all until maybe next year, and even then I don't always see passion fruit cheap. That was pretty surprising to see it at that price. It was really unusual. So when I go to the fruit and veg shop, Adam just takes me out the back normally and he says, this is what we've got cheap, this is what we've got cheap, you know, like as in like this is what's in season, because that's all I'm after for. I'm not looking for a discount when I go there, and I tell him that every time. It's not that I'm looking for a discount, I'm just looking to buy what's in season, buy the box full, because that is the most convenient way for me to do it. I still pay more for some things when it's not quite in season. Like I think I paid $3 a kilo or something, or $4 a kilo for bananas this month, because the kids asked for bananas. We haven't had them for a while. They weren't great quality bananas, and they were a little more expensive than I'd like, but I still bought them. I tend to buy apples most months no matter what, and they range, so in season they can be like 90 cents a kilo, out of season they can be $3 a kilo. I won't buy them if they're excessively priced, but I will buy them if they're just a little bit more than I would like. So the passion fruit may not be available again. We'll see. And I do sometimes kick myself because I have limited space on the ute and then limited time once I get home too. I sometimes sit there and go, I'll just grab one, because I'm just not sure. And then when I get home and I start processing that, I sit there and go, I should have got more, because it's not going to be there when I come back again. I've done that a few times. I got ginger really cheap at one point, and I've got some frozen, but I really should have minced some up to use as like minced ginger as well and things like that. And I should have just bought more, because it can be $30 or $40 a kilo at times. And I think I paid like $5 a kilo when I bought it. Or it might have been a box for $10 or something like that. So I have to try and think of that too. And if I've got the trailer with me, it's not so bad, but I don't always have the trailer with me. So when I don't have the trailer with me, there's not a lot of space on the ute to fit things in. But anyway, rambling there. So that was the first couple of days post the 6-week grocery haul for August. I was pretty sick this whole time, so everything has gone a bit slower paced, and some things have been dealt with in a different way to how I normally would, and that's part of the rhythm of doing these 6-weekly grocery hauls. It really depends on the season too. Like spring is always a lot busier than winter, so winter I tend to preserve a bit more and make a little bit more extravagant things because I've got the time to do it. Spring's going to be a little bit more busy, so we fall back on standards, like staples, not standards, staples, and there'll be a little bit of a lull in fruit too at the beginning of spring. So when I go to the fruit and veg store, there won't be a whole lot. So a lot of our cold season crops won't be there by the time I go back. September, there might be a few still depending on where they're sourced from, but they won't have started the summer crops either, so there'll be no berries or stone fruit or anything yet either, because that sort of season is only just kicking off. So there'll be a bit of a lull in produce next shop probably, and then the shop after that will be more. So, and then our gardens here probably peak more February, March. So we'll see how we go anyway. I'm trying to keep a good track of it this year. I'm so hoping that our gardens do well and that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm rambling, I'm squirreling. That was the first couple of days. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks guys.